Okay, we're going into part two of this debunk. This is the one that's about the black people first hearing about the Absu Er Melech and all the mummies that they have found, and the fact that it shows that they didn't have really any Negroid admix at all, and it starts to show up much later at the end, like during the Roman times, and then the people there currently aren't even the same people, but they have a larger amount of Negroid admix, trying to easily relay to you the fact that don't be looking at the people there today and think that that's where the people were before. Here I'm showing ancient blue-eyed statues that they have with the crystal blue eyes, and we did at the end of last video. If you haven't seen it, you can go to the end of this video in your top right hand corner. It'll go back to part one, and you can see the opening debunk on this and all these blue-eyed statues that they had, all of those there and stuff, and Horaha, yeah, from Horus, and famous old tomb writings say, I knit on the head of the blue-eyed Horus, the god who acts. This is inscriptions into things. So Horus himself is said to be blue-eyed. In fact, the Wadjet eye that they quite often show is blue for a reason. And Nefertiti with her one eye left, and yes, it's blue too. Yeah, amazing, those Caucasian Egyptians. And no fret. And I showed it at the end of last one, but still at the same time, it's important to show it that she has those crystal blue eyes too, and you can look into the eyes of an ancient Egyptian. And so there she is again, but let's just pop that loose. For what we really need to do is probably go on in things, but one thing to note, that this is from the Nakata period that they found, so it's pre-dynastic, well into the pre-dynastic period. They're still using lapis lazuli eyeballs like the Sumerians do and things too, and I've showed a lot of connections to them, which also says that it's not, because here's a picture of the Sumerians and stuff. Oh, that's not going to show up big enough, is it, whenever I do it? No. Well, here's a picture of the Sumerians. That's a Sumerian. Now this is Buddha, who Gautama Buddha is said to have been a blue-eyed. And then ones from South America, even beards, whenever the South Americans don't grow natural beards, blue eyes. Sumerian statues and Egyptians, and that's about the blue-eyed heralds of mankind and how it seems like it really correlates. The one thing it doesn't correlate to is Negroids. Here's Isis from before the time we were even talking about now about any of these people being, and she is a pale goddess, and this is kind of what she would have looked like. And that's a Caucasian, and it's pretty sad that West African primitive ancestors or descendants would try to do such a thing as claim some other culture as we was, but it goes on, and believe it or not, they won't quit, even though it looks so disgusting, because they didn't even know Egypt existed. Here's that other guy here, and wow, that even kind of looks like me. What the hell? And oh, there's one of my videos. That's me pointing at his eyes and stuff with a pencil in my video. And I saw one of Seven Phoenician Sevens videos. This right here, if you click on it, it says blue eyes among black people, and it actually goes through the effect that it's a genetic disorder. So when black people try to, show a blue-eyed black person, it's actually 16 times more rare than albinos and blacks, and well, they eat those to this day. Look, even blue-eyed, blonde-haired, Thuya and Yuya, yeah, they totally checked it out. And all the mummies have Caucasian hair. It really, it's not even like they have a decent admix you would even speak of, but oh, they want to speak of it. In fact, what we're left of, speaking of admix, what we're left of with this idea that the guys here on this video, the racist black idiots, are trying to do is say that, well, oh, so now where we are at this point is he's well known that the middle of all of Egypt didn't have Negroid admixture and the Delta at all. But what they said was nobody checked, or we haven't done this exact same thing to deep up into Nubia and see whenever that little float comes in. And yeah, so it's Caucasians, but the Nubians that weren't even allowed into Egypt, perhaps there's some admix in that area, and he wants to hop up and down, even though West African primitives didn't know Nubians exist and aren't even related to them whatsoever. This is their big in and their big, oh, Whitey wasn't Egypt like the whole thing says, but somehow we was. Trying to hopefully have a little admix maybe in the South that they haven't looked at extensively enough to comment on in this paper, but all of Central Egypt, all the way from Middle Kingdom on, and the Delta shows no, nope, nope, nope. And then if they knew the archaeology that said that blacks weren't even allowed into there and blah, 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 and put two and two together, came up with an equation, they would easily be able to have made a more clerical statement, or maybe even say, well, it seems because the Egyptians themselves said da da da, which is anybody going to believe the Egyptians themselves? Let's go on with what else he has to say. Hopefully there's something decent in the second part.
If you come down here, however, note that all genetic data were obtained from a single. Oh, this is, however, all. Oh, this is a different part right here, right? Okay.
No, that's
all
it.
A single site from the Middle Egyptian may not be representative of all of ancient Egypt.
Always so happy that they say somehow in the deep south that there could have been some admix, but what they're actually saying in that statement is, no, the Egypts are Caucasians all the way through, and it isn't really admix, but there might be some up there. So you're left with nothing, and West African primitives didn't have nothings in the first place.
No, you said that, but I want to lock there for a moment before you move on. Okay. See, this is why you have to learn how to evaluate text and learn what the key words and what they're saying or not saying. When somebody...
No, Negroids aren't looking for the key words that are pointing. I'm pointing that out. What he wants to try to point out is we's maybe, oh ifins, oh we's. And it's like, no, there's no way that's going on.
I say it may not be representative. You know, it really should say that it's not representative. It should be more stronger in terms of its language. When you use may...
No, whenever you use may not be, it says, well, all of middle looks like this way, all the way through, and the delta and everything too. Now, there may be some difference going on up there, but that still isn't going to change too much of the whole concept of the idea that they were always Caucasians. And they don't even care about the Negroid thing. They're trying to figure out exactly which Caucasians, and they figure it out. It's Anatolian Caucasians and early Proto-Indo-European farmers and Western Eurasian hunter-gatherers that have all come into this area and became the Barbarians and stuff, which they've already checked before. So this is just a super confirmation. But then what they were looking for in this paper was after the point that nobody records them being assaulted and taken over, to the Hyksos that brought them chariots and horses and everything, and composite bows and a bunch more. From then on, do we see influxes come in? And the answer was no, and no Negroids until much later, and yeah, they're Caucasian Egyptians, of course, and very little admix even at the end, much less than black Negroes have in America today of Caucasian admix, but we can easily discern what that is. But that logic thing in their head, it try to covet, I want, Gibbs.
They try to be basically slick with it. And so if the Nile River is 4,120 miles long, and, you know, Egypt is like, you know, 800 of those miles or something like that, and then you pick one spot in all of the 42 nomes of Egypt that's in the Delta area, at the end of the 18th dynasty, beginning of the 19th dynasty, when there was a flux of, from that point on, there was a strong flux of, and actually before that, during the Hyksos period, when there was...
Okay, so just to shatter his little dung hut dream that he's got going on here, so he's saying it's the Nile is so long, but Egypt is not all of the Nile. So yeah, but then anything above Egypt is not considered Egypt. So then it's just a mute point, and you're speaking yap. Then let's go from there, where he's trying now to desperately say that, well, it's just one spot and these 42 nomes, Then he misspoke and he says it's in the Delta, and it's really in Central Egypt, just as it said in the paper and we wrote itself. And it says it. And you got to look where Absu Aramelech is and stuff. It's not down near Cairo. It's up into pretty much what they consider Middle Egypt area. And it was used by many people all the way through from that time, and there were periods it was used stronger than other. In other words, people from all other nomes were getting buried there. It was an necropolis. You know, when people die, they've got cemeteries out there that you're using, and there are certain ones they're using. And even though they might slowly use a cemetery for a while, then other times they'll use it more. It connects to the ancient gods in a way, and a lot of people, when they wanted to do that, would try to get buried in that cemetery, and you can see how that works. Ooh, Elvis was buried there, right? But one thing's for sure, Negroids weren't buried there, and they don't have anything to do with it whatsoever. And what this is really showing is that they can't cognate the fact that they're Caucasians.
A flux of foreigners into the Delta region. You know for a fact that it's not representative of.
Okay, so now he's going to, for a fact on something. You know for a fact West African primitives have nothing to do with it, so yap that mouth. Okay, so let's look at it this way. The genetics should show, if he's trying to be right about it, that they should show off strong Negroid at the start and get weak at the end. What the paper is exactly showing, no. Almost nothing at the start and weak at the end, like the only admix shows up later. Never strong Negroid admix, never Negroids, Caucasians. What Caucasians? Haplogroup is showing these Anatolian and European people. Oh, they really dislike that. Oh, it ruins their dung hut dream.
All of the ancient Egyptians. And so when you pick a specific timeline, especially one that is...
It's not a specific timeline. It's a spread out for over 1,500 years or whatever. It's not a timeline, and it's not a point. It's the central necropolis for Egypt through this era. Get your lies straight, or look pathetic. Well, look pathetic anyway, and don't worry about the lie anymore. Just stop.
That late in Egyptian history. And what they're trying to do is take that data from that one area, these three mummies, and then try to make it stand for all of the Egyptians in all time periods.
No, they don't at all. In fact, they actually wrote in there a special paragraph to say there might be some influx up there. So again, you're lying on people. You're a hateful, racist idiot who can't cognate the fact that they say they were Caucasians at the earliest point and on through. I just showed all those blue-eyed guys, and only Hor-Aha and Nefertiti are actually during the time of this test. Before that, all those blue-eyed, pale ladies and shit, that's all early dynastic. That Nakata blue eye, that's pre-dynastic. Try to get it into your head. It was never high Negroid turned to an admix later. It's Caucasians, admix much later, little admix in the people that are now, but you still wouldn't call the people that are now Negroids, and West African primitives didn't even know Egypt existed. Let's continue for their babble a little more.
That's what we call a transubstantive error in logic. And so
transubstantive error in logic is trying to say West African primitives might have had something to do with Egypt because we think that there might have been some black people sometime.
Passivity is a mathematical formula when we say that, you know, if A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C.
That's not even cognitive sentence or mathematics there. B doesn't equal C, and then A, no. It's A plus B equals C. Idiot Negroid. Now you can tell this one speaks a little better than that last one, and he might have some points on him in IQ, but he's still a covetous liar, and it doesn't matter so much, and it's never going to get black people anywhere except for hateful racists that never get anywhere, and they cause their own racism by their own hand and jealousy.
Because all of them are equal. And so they're trying to pull this here, like, but
No,
here,
no, all of them aren't equal. Just like in America, there's 12.6% of the population that are Negroids. They want to be equal. No, you're 50%. No, it doesn't work that way. There's a lot of Mexicans in here that outnumber you and stuff too. It'll never get to that point. This is a Caucasian America. It was made by it. No, yeah, the Indians came. Well, the Indians came over the hand bridge and they were migrants too. It doesn't matter. I look out my window. It's America. It was made by Caucasians, founded by Caucasians, started off. If we were to look at that genomes of the first Americans, finding here from the first graveyards all the way through, what you would see is all Caucasians, some Irish too that come in and variant, but that's actually the first slaves that were in America, and the Negroid admix comes in much later, but they are totally separate, and there's no real admix going on. And then, oh wait, there's some admix with the Negroids, but just this amount, and it stays at this amount and never changes after that really, and the white people stay the same. And so did Negroes found and start America? No, no. Were they part of America's start, just like Negroes weren't part of any genetics that show up there? No. Oh, okay. But they do show up a whole lot. Well, in America they did. They sure as hell didn't in Egypt until much later, as they're saying. Over thousands of years. Nothings.
A and B is not equal, and it can't be equal to C. And so you have such a late period where influx, where people have been settling in Abu Sir, or Abju, as was one of the names, and trying to make an argument for all of ancient Egypt. But then they try to be...
No, they're not trying to make an argument, and they're not trying to be slick in any way. You're trying to make an argument for West African primitives or some Negroid somewhere. They're telling you it didn't happen, and they're having an argument. They're even going your way in the idea, but there might be some admix up south, but the Egyptians are Caucasians through and through, and this isn't somebody other influx coming in. This is them themselves, and them themselves, and them themselves, and they're Caucasians, just like we've always said. But we're finding out, it does have a high European content. Just like King Tut shows up that it's high European content, and Tsar Nicholas is in that same haplogroup, and guess who else is?
Look towards the end, and then give that information that you was reading earlier, that, it could have been more African, towards the further we get down to the south. So
well, it could have been more African Caucasians, and it could have been more Nubian influx, but what it couldn't have been was West African primitive influx, of course.
Still using language to make it seem as if the Egyptians were not Africans, and that we only get some African in the genetic gene pool because we're going further and further down into Nubia.
No, we're actually in Africa, and so Egypt and the people that are there are Africans, like white people are in America. We're Americans. Boy, they have a cognitive dissonance, and they can't. And so they're Caucasian Egyptians, and you can't get it through your head. You keep trying to play this weasel game of some Negro somewhere means wheeze, and it's not.
And so it's problematic even from the way that they're wording the document. And
it's problematic all the way through for any Negro to try to be claiming it, even a Nubian, much less some West African primitives that didn't know Egypt existed.
Aren't savvy enough to catch this,
No, everybody's savvy enough. You're not savvy enough to make a lie even come across as good for anybody to believe it, but deluded, desperate, wanton Negroids.
But you be making the wrong arguments against this paper.
No, right now you be making the wrong arguments against this paper, and it's quite evident.
And so you have to be able to catch these keywords, catch these subtle ways in which they're trying to shift your consciousness into thinking.
Yeah, you've got to watch their subtle little shuck and jive they try to do, and they think they discount one little thing, and they don't, but they think they do, and therefore wheeze. and it doesn't work that way, and it never will. And Nubians will never be called Egyptians, much less West African primitives. How silly and pathetic to even have attempted it in the first place. But oh man, it's taking traction. It won't get away. Why? Because blacks are racist idiots, and they really desperately don't like their life that they came from, and they don't even like the Caucasians that freed them and are giving them chances now. They'd rather talk crap about them, who apparently are related to the Egyptians, and then claim that and claim the Bible that they don't have any part in too, and it's past disgusting.
And so, again, this just came out like a day or two ago. So, the scientific community, the community's already been weighing in, and of course, all the pseudo-racists are taking this to try to argue that the ancient Egyptians were white.
And so that I've already been weighed in on, and it was peer reviewed before it came out. And so the Negro cynics are all trying to weigh in and lie and skew everything and somehow pull off some Black Egypt out of some paper that clearly says Caucasians, and they can't stand it. And so they make up yap lies and say stupid things like he just did right there. Let's hear it one more time. For they give up themselves. It's funny, they project it onto themselves sometimes. They go, oh, well you're just insecure. And it's like, there's a two-way mirror in front of me, and you're seeing yourself. I get it.
Already been weighing in, and of course, all the pseudo-racists are taking this to try to argue that the ancient Egyptians were white.
Pseudo-racists. No, blacks are just totally racist. And if you tried to call whites by calling out the Egyptians as being Caucasians racist, then you're wrong and you're a racist, and you're looking a little bit idiot.
But the serious scientific community is going to look at this, a couple of weeks, and then, respond appropriately.
Yeah, and they have, and they've done nothing but confirm it. And then other people have written papers where, like I showed you in the first one with 7 Phoenician 7, how they've actually correlated all these things together. And yeah, because that was one about Jehudi knocked. And yet they say, yeah, and that U5 and everything, that goes right with what you're talking about. And he's of an older dynasty even. I think he's 12th dynasty. So, they can't get DNA out of the first ones, but I showed you the first ones have the crystal blue eyes and stuff. There is no question. There is no, oh, I wonder, ooh. No, there is none of that.
And, these are some of the things that more than likely they would hit on, as far, and even as going into the methods and what certain alleles actually mean, because there's a section in here. I don't know if you can go to it real quick, Brother Wajawu.
Yeah.
Brother Wajawu.
Where are you talking?
Let me find it real quick. Or you can just do Control F.
And
then type in phenotype or pheno.
Teach him how to use the Caucasian computer.
It should be coming up. It's only in there once. There should be a section in there called estimating phenotypes.
No, it's written something else totally different. See, they don't have a cognitive memory, but yeah.
Phenotypic analysis. Let's go to the next one. Estimating phenotype. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, I'm wrong. Oh no. So now all of a sudden, Egyptians was Kang. Oh no, that's not the way that works either. I was wrong that it is a different category, and the other one did say something different. I can easily admit it. Can blacks admit it whenever they're wrong about coveting and saying they're part of the Bible or Egypt? Will they stop? For it's going to be a joke for a long, long time, even if they stopped. But they can make it worse. Here they show locusts for the blue-eyed and lighter skin pigmentations and stuff. And it's disgusting that he's going to try to somehow, while talking about this, try to still keep up the idea that they're Negro Egyptians.
So, this is an important section here in terms of their argument. So it says, finally, we analyzed several functionally relevant SNPs in sample JK2911, which had low contamination and relatively high coverage. This individual had a derived allele at the SLC24A5 locus, which contributes to lighter skin pigmentation and was shown.
Why did you say contributes real loud? Like, in the Caucasians it does. Blacks don't have that. Oh, whoopsie. Busted, but contributes. It's pathetic what they attempt to weasel snot.
To be at high frequency in Neolithic Anatolia, consistent with the ancestral affinities shown above.
So, on Anatolians and them Caucasians, and that's like here, and that's that same locus from here and everything, and we're saying they're Anatolians and farmers, and here's that allele. But I'm going to somehow try to turn it into we was Negroes.
SNPs carry the ancestral allele, including HERC2 and LCT, which suggests dark-colored eyes and lactose intolerance. So you would have to also...
Yeah, so that's where you get the hunter-gatherers versus the farmers that come in. And so there were a group of people that were the earliest farmers, and they got over lactose intolerance, and then the other people didn't as often. By the way, a lot of blacks are lactose intolerant still because they were so late in the fact of having any farming and domesticating cattle. All the cattle and the cows and all that stuff, that all comes from Anatolian and Sumerian farmers. And all the grains there, the emmer wheat, and barley and everything, that's all that too, yeah.
Know about genetics to know like how much of a farce this section is. Because the SLC24A5 locus is a group of genes and things that are responsible for skin color, period.
And it shows that they were Caucasian, period. But somehow he's trying to say, if I can kind of try to make it seem like there might be some confusion on whether the glove fits or not, OJ didn't do it, and then therefore every one of them were Negroes.
And so they're trying to make it seem here, which contributes to the lighter skin pigmentation that was shown to be at a higher frequency in Neolithic Anatolia. So they're trying to shape your mind to make it to show that.
They ain't trying to shape your mind. You're the ass that's trying to shape black people's mind and shape your own mind to try to make yourself believe that West African primitives knew of or had anything to do with Egypt.
These people genetically are supposedly closer to Near Easterners. That the Near Easterners had a gene in this locus that is responsible for lighter skin. Therefore, these were lighter skin and not black Africans.
No, it goes much deeper than that. They were always Caucasians, and they contain this locus, which is known and actually seen in Anatolia, and they're making the connection because of the genetics that show Anatolians, Neolithic Anatolians, and how it connects. And there is no Negroid. Again, they say it started out with none really, and then it shows up some at the very end, but then they make even a mention that the people nowadays have some, but that's all because of slave trade that happened long time ago, and don't confuse that. Please, Negro, don't try to confuse that, because right now they're still, even though they have some admix, they're still Caucasians. But oh my God, gonna try that. Well, what about the Bea? They aren't Egyptians. The Egyptians in old age aren't the people living in Egypt now, and everybody damn well knows it, and you do too, but you're trying to say they were black, and everybody else is saying no, and you're trying to say West African primitives were Kangs, and everyone realizes no, and it's gotten past disgusting.
So you got to catch the subtlety, of this text and learn, this is why it's important to read, to learn how to...
There ain't no damn subtlety to it at all. They're telling you they have that light-skinned gene, so that's one other way that they're Caucasians and have nothing to do with Negroids.
Read scientific literature and know what this stuff means. Just don't think that these are just random letters and numbers and stuff we're reading. You got to look these things up and see what...
No, they tell you right there that it's the SLC which contributes to lighter skin pigmentation and eye coloration. They'll tell you right there, so people that are ignorant to it might at least be able to be part of the conversation, and they don't want to go big long word go over your head. But they're already over the head of the Negroes who can't seem to cognate they're saying they're Caucasians with light skin.
they're responsible for. And see how it's so just all in the language and how it is being used. You know, it's just faulty just all the way around.
No, the faulty part is Negroes trying to put themselves into Caucasian civilizations they had nothing to do with and didn't know it existed. The faulty thing is something mental in the black people where they can't quit trying to do something like this. Yeah, the crime and the problems and everything with it. It's the year of return, but few of them are wanting to return. It's amazing.
But there's so much more we can get into, but
Yeah.
I'll let Unc continue.
Yeah, I could go all day and you wouldn't win a single argument, but let's continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, mind you,
Right here.
if you, okay.
And you know, this is also in the Journal of Natures in the open access section. I think it's a letter too, ain't it? Let me see. Let's see.
I don't know who is slapping on the microphone with a pencil or something, but it's annoying, and it got annoying 20 taps ago.
Here. I think this kind of proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that reading comprehension is important.
I think this shows that you ain't got no grammar, and yeah, it would have been more important during your childhood, and read more of the Caucasian words in the Caucasian language. For your people never had a written language. Fact?
When reading anything, they don't have conclusive evidence, and they tell you that, and they use it.
No, yes, total conclusive evidence, though he mentions that down south there might be some admix, but that ain't calling it, and that won't change the fact on what the Egyptians are. And it's Caucasians, and actually Anatolian and European farmers and hunter-gatherers. So it's no Negroid, and it's Caucasian, Caucasian, Caucasian.
Big word for that, right? And they tell you they need more information on the subject. And they say, man, we're just sampling one portion in the Delta, because they're actually in the Delta. I mean...
No, they're not. Look at where it is. It's considered to be one of the central and longest used during the time period they're trying to look at. It's a win-win. And in the fact they did win-win. They got 114 of them's mitochondrial DNA, 90 of them they could pin to a total haplogroup and everything, and 3 of them's entire genetic signature. And they're telling you no Negroids until much later, and it shows up very late. And he's still trying to somehow say, was King, was West African primitives. And that's the end of that bull. So we're gone. Onward. Next.